So, hi everybody. Some of you remember me from last time, maybe?
Yes.
And some of you don't? Okay, well it's good to be here again. We have to do this every 18 months. We're required by federal law. The EEOC in particular requires that we teach supervisors in a fairly thorough way about employment law issues. So if you remember, my name's Corper, C-O-R-P-E-R. What does it mean in German?
Awesome.
You know.
Good answer.
The body, it means body, right? Or cuerpo in Spanish, corpus in Latin. So I respond to corpor or the body. There are going to be a lot of bad jokes like that. We're here for a while, so we might as well settle in. Whoops. What does that mean, Aaron? There you go. Okay, I just need to move it every now and then. I'm a lawyer. Remember, I'm the good kind of lawyer. I sue bad guys, and I represent NAC in employment law issues. I also teach employment law at the University of Utah, and I primarily, and I do a lot of trainings like this. I was a teacher before law school, so I like training, but I spend most of my time in federal court. One of the reasons I think my training is different, and I think more interesting, is because I've tried lots of cases in federal court, in front of juries, in front of judges. I've dealt with just about any issue you can think of. I think I have a better understanding of how they actually look in court, and so I think I bring a little bit different perspective. And my cases are nuts. So I'm going to tell you about a bunch of them today. They really are. I mean, the things that I deal with are interesting. The sexual harassment cases I constantly have. That's one thing that will never, ever go away. We love sexually harassing. So my goal here is for you guys to leave with a pretty good handle on rights and responsibilities, and in particular, supervisory obligations pertaining to employment law. I'm going to talk a lot about cases that I've handled. I'm going to talk a lot about the major federal laws that you need to be aware of. Please ask questions. You can give me scenarios. You can, whatever it is that you need to know, all right? I want you to leave feeling pretty confident about what you have to do. We are obligated to do this by the EEOC, which means basically, as soon as something's filed, something happens. My first answer in defense for any client is, we have a policy, we follow the policy, we train on the policy, we train our supervisors in particular on the policy, and that kind of gets us halfway home. So that's just why we're here. All right. The first big principle that I want you guys to be aware of, well, before this one, we're going to go to that one in a second, is, and you know, if you were in my training the other day, that was a very short version of this. We're going to go a lot more in depth today. The first principle I need you to be aware of is called respondeat superior. This is why I'm here training supervisors. Anybody know what that means, or ever heard of that Latin term? It means that you respond for the superior, respondeat superior. What it really means is, as supervisors, what you do or don't do, what you say or don't say, your action or inaction is impugned to NAC. Does that make sense? So as a supervisor, you are NAC. So whatever you know, NAC knows. Does that make sense? So if you're aware of some discrimination or harassment, some issue, NAC is aware of some discrimination or harassment, some issue, right? When you're aware of a potential federal law issue or violation, you're required by law to take action. So if you don't take action as a supervisor, NAC has not taken action. That makes sense? So that's why you're here. That's why we have to do this. You are the organization. There's no private cause of action under these federal laws. You guys realize that, right? You can't sue a supervisor individually for sexual harassment or discrimination based on race or for FMLA harassment, right? You don't sue an individual supervisor, you sue the company or the organization. You guys know why that is? Do you guys know what the constitutional hook is that compels NAC and other private organizations to comply with these federal laws? Anybody know? Like, NAC receives some state and federal funding, right? Very little,
Yeah.
but some, right? So you guys are a public entity in a sense when it comes to these laws. But any idea why the federal government can reach into a small bakery with, let's say, 20 employees and tell them you have to comply with these federal laws? It's the Commerce Clause, right? This is good stuff, you guys. I'm going to tell you a lot of stuff that will make you sound smart, all right? So here's the number one thing. So the Commerce Clause of the Constitution says that the federal government can regulate interstate commerce, right? So that means the Congress has decided if a private company has more than 15 employees, it likely engages in interstate commerce, right? In 2015, could you have a company smaller than 15 employees that engages in interstate commerce? Yeah, you definitely could, right? Now you can have a company with 1 employee that engages in interstate commerce with internet and credit card machines and that sort of stuff. But Congress has still said that if you have 15 or more employees and you are a private employer, you have to comply with these federal laws, right? Because you likely engage in interstate commerce. If you're a public entity or receive state and federal funding, whether you're, there's some nonprofits that don't receive any state or federal funding and still might fall outside of that public entity status. But for you guys, you're obligated to comply with all of these laws. Not just in contracts when you receive money, but because you're sort of a quasi-public entity. So, federal laws, right? In Utah, we only have federal law when it comes to employment law. There are some states, and I always say the blue states. I think it's funny how now if I say the blue states, you guys know what I'm talking about, right? It's true. The blue states generally have additional employment laws, but in Utah, the way that it works is you have to meet the federal law. You can exceed it, have additional protections for employees. You can't fall below it. In Utah, we just meet the bare minimum federal law, and we really don't have any additional employment law protections. So all we're going to talk about today is federal law. And that's interesting in Utah because we have a legislature that hates federal government involvement, right? And yet every single employment issue, almost, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but for our purposes, every employment law issue is a federal issue, which is a lot bigger deal than state work. You guys kind of have a sense of that, right? But it's funny because it makes my job more interesting because all of my practice is in federal law. And as supervisors for NAC, you got to understand, if we have an issue, an employment issue in Utah, it's a federal law issue, which is a lot bigger deal than if it were a state law issue. Okay, so that's just sort of some background, some theory, why we're here, how this all works. As supervisors, you have to take action. By the end of this, you're going to know what that action is that you have to take. And I just want you to leave here knowing the difference between stuff that you need to just manage and supervise, right? Jimmy stole my sandwich. My boss makes me do stuff I don't want to do. And stuff that creates federal exposure for the organization. Some stuff you manage and supervise and tell people to go back to work and stop being babies, right? Don't do it like that. I'm not the best touchy-feely guy. That's, you got people for that. But I mean, to a certain extent, I actually think for savvy supervisors, it makes sense to understand the difference between go back to work, we'll try to take care of this problem, and this could be a federal exposure issue. Federal exposure issue, we call it troops. We conduct an investigation, human resources needs to get involved immediately, we make sure there hasn't been any sort of violation. If there has, we have to fix it, we take action immediately, that sort of stuff, okay? So by the end of today, that's what I want. I want you guys to understand the difference between manage and supervise, and call out the troops and make sure that we're not creating any sort of federal exposure for ourselves, okay? All right, that's my intro. Any questions? All right. I like long walks on the beach, romantic sunset.